For over 2,000 years, the final resting place of history's most famous queen has remained one of archaeology's greatest unsolved mysteries. But here's what will blow your mind. A woman with no formal archaeological training may have just cracked the case that stumped experts for centuries.
No man shall ever find my tomb.
According to legend, these were the words Cleopatra once uttered. But here's the fascinating twist. It wasn't about gender at all. She didn't want any living soul to disturb her eternal rest. And incredibly, it's a woman who has come closer than anyone else to discovering the Queen's final resting place. Let me introduce you to Kathleen Martinez Berry, a criminal defense lawyer who transformed herself into an archaeologist. Her fascination with Cleopatra's story became so intense that she packed her bags and travelled to Egypt without official support, without government permission, with nothing but sheer determination to find the Queen's tomb.
Kathleen was always ahead of the game. She skipped school classes, mastered piano, chess, swimming, and martial arts, and grew up listening to debates among the finest intellectuals in her home. She earned her law degree at just 19 years old, with archaeology as her burning passion.
She had never been to Egypt. She had never excavated a single artifact. But her obsession with Cleopatra began with a heated argument with her father in 1990.
That day, I entered his library searching for a copy of Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra.
I remember I was just sitting there, and I casually called Cleopatra a seductress.
I didn't like that one bit. I fired back, telling him that history had been completely unfair to Cleopatra. The Romans, I argued, wanted to destroy her reputation, and for centuries, people simply believed their version of events.
The debate went on for hours. Eventually, I had to admit, maybe I judged Cleopatra too harshly.
This conversation changed everything for Kathleen. From that day forward, she devoured every ancient manuscript she could find, especially Plutarch's narratives about Cleopatra and Mark Antony. The more she studied, the more convinced she became that Cleopatra wasn't just some queen who fell for the wrong guy. She was a genius, playing a dangerous political game to preserve Egypt's independence.
And the more I read, the more I wondered, what if everyone has been searching for Cleopatra's tomb in the wrong place?
This thought, it just consumed her mind. While on maternity leave with her second child, she earned a master's degree in archaeology. Talk about multitasking. This reminded her of the idea that had captured her life, uncovering the truth about Cleopatra. While most experts believe that Cleopatra's tomb, along with the final resting places of 13 other Ptolemaic rulers, lies somewhere beneath modern Alexandria, Dr. Martinez held a different view.
I believed Cleopatra was buried at Taposiris Magna, an ancient temple dedicated to Osiris, the Egyptian deity of the afterlife, but I still needed the ancient foundation stone.
These smartphone-sized stones were placed beneath important temple structures, and they often contained inscriptions explaining when and why the temple was built. If Dr. Martinez could find a stone confirming the temple was dedicated to Isis, Cleopatra's patron deity, she would have solid proof this was the right place to search. Nothing could stop Martinez. She excavated the entire temple site, digging deeper than anyone before her. Her team discovered coins bearing Cleopatra's name and image. This meant Cleopatra had a direct connection to this location. Then they uncovered something even more intriguing. A tunnel that once brought water to people, leading straight from the temple to the Mediterranean Sea. If part of the temple had already sunk into the water, maybe Cleopatra's tomb was there too.
Every time we found something, it just pushed us to dig even deeper. When we uncovered those coins, I knew we were on the right track. And that tunnel, it was like a sign. Maybe, just maybe, Cleopatra's final resting place was closer than anyone ever thought.
Martinez still needed evidence to convince Egyptian authorities to allow her to conduct underwater searches, and against all odds, she found the missing stone. On it, a pharaoh was offering the deity Isis a large territory of Nubia. There it was, the confirmation she desperately needed. The temple was indeed dedicated to Isis, proving her theory wasn't just speculation.
When I saw that stone, I could hardly believe it. It was the proof I needed. Suddenly, everything made sense.
If one temple stood on land, Martinez suspected a second temple, possibly Cleopatra's tomb, had collapsed into the sea. She needed help from underwater archaeology experts, so she reached out to Robert Ballard, the man who discovered the Titanic. With support from Egyptian authorities, she and her team began exploring the waters off Alexandria's coast. And what they discovered was mind-blowing.
Underwater, we found these massive stone structures, standing 2 to 3 meters high, right where the shoreline would have been thousands of years ago. We also found basalt blocks, the same material used for statues from the first temple. This meant one thing. These weren't just random rocks. These were the remains of a lost city, buried underwater for centuries.
Now, here's some essential backstory. After the death of Cleopatra's father, Ptolemy XI, the throne of Egypt passed to Ptolemy XIII and Cleopatra. Or so it seemed. Cleopatra, just 18 years old at the time, supposedly married her 10-year-old brother. Yes, ancient royalty had their customs, though solid evidence for this is scarce. But this sibling love didn't last long. Young Ptolemy decided he wanted all the power for himself and tried to push Cleopatra out. Forced to flee the country, she didn't sit around feeling sorry for herself. She raised an army ready to march and take back what belonged to her. At 21, she was already in the Sinai desert, leading an army and planning her return to the throne.
I knew I couldn't give up. Egypt was my home, my birthright. With every step through the desert, I was determined to reclaim my place.
By this time, Cleopatra was already involved with Julius Caesar, a powerful political and not just political alliance. In June of 47 BC, she gave birth to a son, Ptolemy Caesar, better known as Caesarion, whom many believed to be Caesar's child. But this didn't stop her from playing by Egyptian royal rules. She took a second husband, another brother, Ptolemy XIV.
Roman intrigue. Yes, despite my ongoing affair with Caesar, I married yet another relative. In my world, keeping the throne in the family was paramount, you see.
Despite the marriage, Cleopatra's bond with Caesar remained strong. She even travelled to Rome with Ptolemy XIV on a state visit. But instead of playing the role of obedient queen, she stayed at Caesar's private villa by the Tiber River.
However, after Julius Caesar's assassination in 44 BC during the Ides of March, my political position became shaky.
Soon after, her brother-husband, Ptolemy XIV, died, and some suspect Cleopatra had a hand in this, leaving her as Egypt's sole ruler. Meanwhile, over in Rome, Mark Antony rose to power as Caesar's presumed successor. Wanting to get acquainted with Egypt's queen, he summoned Cleopatra, and, well, she sure didn't disappoint. Sailing into the city on a luxurious barge dressed as a deity, Cleopatra made a spectacular entrance. Antony was instantly captivated, so much so that he left his third wife in Rome and followed Cleopatra to Alexandria, where, you know, their relationship blossomed into a full royal romance. They had 3 children together and waged war against Caesar's adopted son, Octavian, fighting for control of the Roman Empire.
I knew the stakes were high, but with Antony by my side, I believed we could change the course of history.
The Queen was last seen in her mausoleum, dressed in full royal splendour with a diadem on her head, lying on what Plutarch called a golden couch. When Antony and Cleopatra lost at Actium, Octavian's troops entered Alexandria. Cleopatra clearly knew the end was near, so she locked herself in her mausoleum, surrounded by gold, silver, pearls, and priceless works of art. She threatened to burn these treasures rather than let the Romans take them.
I would rather see my treasures turn to ashes than let them fall into Roman hands.
Antony, meanwhile, wasn't about to let the Romans capture him alive. He wounded himself with his own sword, but before dying he was brought to Cleopatra. She held him as he breathed his last breath in her arms. Just over a week later, Cleopatra made her own choice. Rather than endure the humiliation of being Octavian's prisoner, she ended her life. Legend says it was a cobra's bite, though history doesn't give a clear answer. At that time, Cleopatra was only 39 years old. If you ask me, that's quite an eventful life. The ancient city of Taposiris Magna lies hidden on Egypt's northern coast. Today, little remains of its former glory, but what lies beneath it may hold the key to unlocking a famous mystery. Cleopatra, the most memorable Egyptian queen in history.
The recently discovered tunnel is also known as a geometric marvel of its time. During underground excavations, a structure measuring 1,300 meters was uncovered, partially submerged in water. Its design and construction technique resemble the Eupalinos Tunnel, another amazing ancient discovery in Greece, built by excavating simultaneously from both ends to meet in the middle. The use of mathematics and geometry to create this structure was astonishingly accurate for those times, especially since it was built near a mountain. Archaeologists working at the Taposiris Magna excavation site since 2004 believe this tunnel may lead to Cleopatra's lost tomb.
So, the evidence is really starting to pile up, you know? Every clue we find brings us a little closer to the truth about Cleopatra's final resting place. It's like, the more we dig, the more this ancient mystery starts to make sense. But hey, there's still a lot we don't know.